It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Frank, or also known as Chief Bacon Officer. I'm sure we will also dive into your obsession about bacon, but today I want to focus more on your journey with all of these companies that you have built over the past couple of months. So really excited to hear about the Salesforge ecosystem and yeah, awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I wish it would be a couple of months. It's actually a couple of years. So, a couple of years is going to be next month, actually. So we launched the company in June 2023 with our first product called Salesforge. But yeah, a bit about me. So, been in sales for well over a decade. Started my career at Google and then transitioned to a bunch of other SaaS companies. Well, Google wasn't SaaS really, but I worked for companies like Similarweb, BlackRock, and machine learning, and selling the old school AI, which exists and is well alive. Meaning machine learning, you predict some stuff online, and then you change your behavior based on the prediction. And then in my previous gig, I led a sales team of about 50. During that particular time, this is where I observed a huge problem that you have with what's called CAC inefficiency. Essentially, you're plowing a lot of heads into the sales equation, meaning more salespeople means more pipeline. That was the fallback in the days, but that's not something that's realized. Essentially, VCs used to tell you, "Hey, Frank, let's hire more salespeople. Let's aggressively." Scale our pipeline and our revenue, but more bodies doesn't necessarily mean more revenue.
Absolutely.
And I always thought to myself, why do you need all these individuals in the team? So I had a team of 50. Why couldn't you significantly increase output levels with significantly a smaller team? So essentially being lean and mean. And that's exactly then why we sort of built Salesforge. We essentially help companies right now in B2B build sales pipelines, so meaning delivering meetings by using essentially humans and AI agents. So we're big believers in the combination of both, as what we call the blend. And that is really the ultimate path forward for the economy, rather than choosing one or the other path, right? So we don't believe that the whole economy will be operating on humans only as we progress into the future, neither on AI agents as well, because due to various different reasons, such as legislative reasons, but we believe in both. So we launched the company about a couple of years ago. We built about 7 products. We scaled in the first year from $0 to $3 million, and from 3 co-founders to 40 employees right now.
That's incredible. Before we dive into the Salesforge ecosystem, I first want to hear from you. You had a great career, you had a great job probably. Why did you decide to take the leap and also take on massive risk and start a startup? What motivated you?
Good question. So back in the days, so when I left my job as a VP sales, I already had actually a job offer lined up to be again head of sales for another great company and leading them to greatness. So it was a great product, great team, etc. But the dilemma was for me, I think back then. So I'm always essentially when I'm entering the next step of my career, when I look at my next chapter, essentially I'm looking at the new challenge, and essentially it's a challenge where you're under significantly more pressure. Essentially, you're learning something new, etc. But for me, being again head of sales for another company didn't feel like the real challenge where I would actually learn something new. Essentially, selling software for another CEO is not something where I would learn anything new, and I thought that the next step really should be something where I switch gears. So for me, that became, building actually a sales technology company to help reduce headcount at the top of the funnel. I thrive really well in the zone of unknown, essentially, and that's why starting a company was a perfect thing. We're first-time founders. And you just, jump into this, into the thing of world of startups, and see if you get lucky. And luckily enough, without any pivots or whatsoever, we did scale and get lucky, really, I think. So luck is one of the things that really has to happen in your life. But at the same time, we also have a lot of domain expertise in the field in terms of how things have to be built, how they have to look. So it's a no-brainer that we're able to find, big enough of a market, with big enough of pain, that we were going after. But yeah, I kind of also miss my old days of being in sales. Reason being is that I used to get paid a lot more being in sales than right now being as a founder. I think a lot of people don't realize that you don't get actually paid that much being as a founder. And it is, it does vary from one startup to another, or whether you're VC backed or bootstrap. But I can definitely tell you, especially in the first, kind of pre-seed, seed, maybe Series A stage, you do feel like you could be earning a lot more back in your days in sales rather than being as a founder. So, being a founder, you have equity in the business naturally, and it's about the long, game where maybe in, I don't know, 5 to 10 years time, you will exit and there will be a liquidity event, and then you will you will have a home run. That doesn't always happen, right? Because 99% of startups also fail. So, but
That's right.
yeah, we're still helpful.
So you mentioned 99% of startups fail. Is this one of the reasons why you started multiple companies? And I think this is a great time for you to actually introduce the Salesforge ecosystem. And I try to challenge you with your sales skill. Maybe give us an elevator pitch for all of them and keep it as short as possible, but still give us a gist what it can do.
Sure. So today, if you're a head of sales or you're a founder of a company, typically you need to buy multiple what's called point solutions to help you to achieve your sales pipeline targets. So that's what we call the Android experience. And what we're building is the Apple experience. You go to one vendor where that one vendor provisions multiple softwares under one roof. Having multiple ecosystem benefits like, let's say, Forge ID, no need to have a sales ops manager, and multiple other benefits essentially with that. So these aren't actually companies, these are apps that we fully own, separate brands, separate websites, separate entry points into the ecosystem. So it's a bit like Apple. And yeah, there's a multiple benefits of having this sort of ecosystem. And that's something that we're seeing already with our customer base.
Understood. And maybe again,
Did I do a good job?
specifically, what do the products do?
What do the products do? So the core product, what we call the mothership, or the flagship product, is called Salesforge. So this is where sales reps get onboarded. You can also spin up AI agents within that. And this is where, and the reason why it's a mothership product, why it's the core product, is because we expect in this product to have the highest user frequency, as in users logging back in and doing various activities, meaning on a daily basis. It could be literally Monday to Sunday, because sales reps also operate during weekends. And there's a few things that we do to help them to do that as well. But so Salesforge is where you execute sort of email campaigns. So we're launching also LinkedIn as well. But essentially, this is setting up campaigns or what's called sequences, where you're executing typically 1 to 3 messages. You're sending that out, and we just do a really good job at it. As in, we have the ability to uniquely compute a unique email in any language and deliver that. And then if you're using AI agents, you can also respond back to the prospect, and you can actually fully autonomously book meetings. So that's the sort of some of the capabilities we have. Then around the mothership product, we built other products that make the mothership significantly more powerful. So we have 3 products that just focus on the email infrastructure. So meaning setting up domains and email accounts. This is something that you need to do so that you don't harm your primary business domain. And we have 3 different softwares that just do that, and all of them, each one of them does it slightly different depending on the use case, depending on the ICP of the customer. So ICP being ideal customer profile. Then we have a product that improves deliverability called Warmforge. So you can hook up any infrastructure, you can essentially boost the deliverability of your infrastructure, and then you also can run what's called placement tests or spam tests to see whether your email is landing in spam or not. So the reason why, so what I'm mentioning right now is heavily to do with essentially what's called tackling the email deliverability problem that exists in the world of email. So we build multiple products just to address that and help customers to de-risk having any deliverability issues. And then the other one is what's called LeadsForge. It's about to get launched, and LeadsForge is the first ever search engine in the world. So think of it as a Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity, where you're searching for leads, for a particular type of leads. And then we transform essentially your intent, and essentially what is it that you're looking for, and hooking up your intent essentially to multiple databases in the world, and then surfacing that data nicely within the software. And then you're able to consume that data, whatever it is that you need, whether that's in Salesforge, HubSpot, Salesforce, etc. So yeah.
Very interesting. But it seems like you're solving always the same problem, making outbound much more efficient. Why did you decide to do like multiple products instead of one unified bloated platform?
Good question. So I think if people have worked in sales for a long time, when you think about a bloated software, you think about Salesforce. So you think about, damn, there's like zillions of features, and you're barely even using like 10-20% of the whole software. So we knew that building a super app, meaning cramming features into one app, didn't feel like the right path forward, especially because, we also have competitors such as Apollo, for example, ZoomInfo, and other products essentially in the market, which is something that you would describe all in one solution, or what I would typically say the super app concept. And I thought to myself, there must be a different way to service the market and potentially in a better way. And that way is what we call the software compound model. So there's a model for this. You're essentially compounding software on top of each other. You're building multiple pieces of software, and you're selling that to the same user and to the same customer. So typically, how we optimize and how we look at our metrics, we typically look at how many subscriptions per account do we actually get. It's not one, it could be 2 or 3, right? We were definitely optimizing towards 3 subscriptions per account. And then that means in our case, we have far superior unit economics than, say, point solutions in the market. So there are disadvantages and there are advantages of building this approach, let's call it modular approach. But my thought process is, let's say, from a UX UI standpoint, if the user, let's say in execution software, uses only 20% of the feature set, then just give them the 20%, and the rest, which is barely used, decouple that. And the user will have much better experience if the user just looks at the stuff that they actually need to look at, rather than clicking kind of around in different tabs, So we believe there's better UX and UI by doing in this particular way than cramming stuff and becoming something like Salesforce. Then second benefit is you can maximize monetization of each of those modules or softwares. So think of it this way, that each of the softwares, you have an API, let's say, for each of those softwares. And that means this particular software, you can hook it up somewhere else in the ecosystem. So we power a lot of other tech companies in the space with one of the 7 products. And that's not something that we would be able to do if everything was sort of mashed together in one app. It would be just way too complex for the other parties to get what we do. But if you're saying, hey, this software does, let's say, email warm-up, then other companies that don't do email warm-up, I can just hook up email warm-up and I can just power the email warm-up as a thing. So that means I'm also able to increase monetization. There's other ways how you can increase monetization, but think of it this way, that each of those brands, it's like running a startup within a startup. That means the go-to market of that particular brand, that particular product can be very different to any other module of what we call Forge in the ecosystem. And one of them could have, some freebies, the other one won't have freebies. Like, there's different ways how you can market these products very effectively. So, and I think it would be very difficult, again, if we would cram that all into one software, it would be difficult to maximize the monetization of the software. So yeah, that's how we think about this. And naturally, what typically ends up happening, right? So a user signs up for product 1, and then we're trying to figure out ways how we can sort of, from a PLG standpoint, so from product-led growth sort of lens, how can they actually buy product 2 and 3, not more sort of naturally? How can we make it in a way that makes sense? Now, from a strategy standpoint, so if everybody is building what we call a super app, right? It's one brand, one app, and building more features. So if everybody is going down this swimming lane, then don't just build another super app. Is my favorite. Do something different, in the space. And because this space has like hundreds of different other players in the market, all trying to solve a very similar problem, as in building pipeline, then if I'm able to do that in a very different fashion, then I'm able to differentiate myself with my own unique positioning. So having multiple products, then the other unique positioning is that we blend humans and AI agents with one software, which is quite unique. Most of the companies in the space, they either believe in humans only, or they believe in AI agents only. So there's a lot of AI agent companies in the sales space. We believe in the blend because we don't believe in discounting human, and we don't believe in discounting AI agents. We believe that the maximum output can be achieved by blending both. I'll give you an example why you don't discount humans, for example, is because, say, AI cold calling is banned in the space in the US and Europe. So that means if the human is only able to tackle cold calling, then, well, let's say the agent will do, say, email and, say, social, but on a calling front, the human will get involved and will do the calls. Whereas, on inbound, you can do actually AI calling, so there's no problem. But on outbound, you can. So this is an example of why you would see a blend. So for the same campaign, you may have humans executing these 2 steps, or these 2 steps, while the other 2 steps would be executed by an agent. So.
We'll dive definitely more into the AI part, and I see you're also launching your own AI agent, Frank, very soon. But before this, first, maybe
it's
clarify this for me. Sorry?
It's actually live for a while. So.
It is live. Okay. We'll talk about it just in a second. But maybe clarify for me this a bit more, because it's fascinating to see that you're launching multiple successful products while other startup founders are struggling with even getting one working product onto the market. So how do you manage focus? And better said, how do you manage to build all of this even as a bootstrap founder?
Good question. So we're not strictly bootstrap. We did raise $500,000, but some people would say that we are bootstrapped. So if you raise $500,000, it's kind of the same as being bootstrapped. Funny thing is, we were always profitable. So the money that we raised, you could say it was a bit of a waste, but I mean, there's other benefits that come with getting the investors on board, which is the knowledge, right? So, but yeah, you could call us bootstrap, but we actually did raise $500,000, and we are planning to raise a Series A. So we are looking to go down the VC path. Reason being is that we want to accelerate and get to $100 million in ARR as quickly as we can. Sorry, your question was
how do we manage focus?
Focus,
While building
yeah.
multiple
So on the
startups? And
on the focus front. So what we really do is what I call. I'm not sure whether this is a term in the space or not, but I call this parallel building. So you build softwares in parallel, and you assign essentially. Think of it this way: a bit like a squad to a particular software. So there may be. On the back end, let's say we typically assign 1 or 2 engineers for every app, and on the front end team actually covers all the apps. And because we can recycle a lot of the components of the UI from one app to another quite easily. So yeah, that is definitely feasible to do it. Now you just have to play it smart, and I always believe that you have to keep engineers at 100% capacity at all times, right? So how do you do that? Well, if an engineer can work on this app for a bit, maybe from that app for a bit, etc. So you can definitely juggle the team also around as well quite successfully. But then also how we operate the engineering team is a bit, I guess, different to maybe other teams. I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to a lot of CTOs out there in the world, but the way that we run our engineering team or our product team is we have monthly milestones that we need to hit. So it's a bit like a sales team where a sales team also has monthly targets. The engineering team also has a target. And it's very simple, actually. It's just a Google spreadsheet, and you're saying, hey, we're going to deliver these 20, 30 things, and these are the engineers that we assign, and we all commit to that, and that's it. We ship, right? So, and every month we're going through the same cycle, and that's about it. And so far it has been, I would say, relatively successful. I wish we would ship faster. But I don't think we have a lot of process issues as per se. We have more of we're still looking for a lot of engineers that we need to hire, because there's still some inputs where you need more engineers, even though a lot of engineers are already using AI co-pilots, let's say like Cursor, etc., to max out productivity. So just like we were maxing productivity on the sales front, we're also thinking, how do we max out productivity on the engineering front?
So maybe
Yeah.
it's a good time to actually move over to the sales side, because a go-to-market is probably your main responsibility.
Yes.
Or one of your responsibilities. And you have been very successful with getting to 3 million ARR in the first year, right? So how did you manage to get to this point?
Good question. So a bit of backstory so it's about $1 million in ARR. There were just 3 co-founders. Then $2 million in ARR. We hired just a few engineers and a few people in support, so no go-to-market team. And then after $2 million of ARR, we started definitely to hire the go-to-market team. Because it would be very hard to scale to 10 million. So, I mean, a lot of things do happen. And I don't think there's like one thing that we did. It's always quite difficult to do a retro. Frank, what is it that you do to scale that fast? And my typical answer is I did everything. Everything I could, I did it. Whether I was on Reddit talking about my product and then commenting on people's posts, whether I was on LinkedIn, whether I was in WhatsApp communities, whether I was in Slack communities. I was running a bit of paid media, bidding competitive terms. I was ramping up SEO already in the early days using AI in the very early days. Doing some videos on YouTube, etc. So being out there, and I think definitely there's in our case there's a lot that has to do with essentially founder-led sales. So where I'm sort of spearheading the brand, right? So yeah, in the public realm, I do head up the go-to-market team. Maybe kind of give a good sense. So we have 40 employees, and there's 3 co-founders, but we have no managers at all in the team. And that's because we hire, the type of people that we hire is what we call autonomous humans. So you have to be, what we call a proper adult rather than a child that has to be sort of babysitted. So
you have autonomous humans, but now we also introduce autonomous agents into your team.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe tell me about Agent Frank and how he can help you in your go-to-market.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, a lot of folks spin up Agent Frank in tandem with existing sales team when they operate Salesforge, but also you can just run Agent Frank on its own. So the way that it works is, so in this software, we need to have a good understanding, a good context as to what is it that you're selling, or why the heck you're reaching out to people. And that's what we call the value prop. And you can set up multiple products or services within the software, multiple languages as well. We're big believers in languages because language or localization does drive 2x relative lift versus English in the markets like France, for
Where are you
example,
from?
Germany, etc. So once we know the value prop, and you can also actually upload a lot of documents about your business, like a sales playbook, maybe pricing, FAQs, and a lot of other things. So we use that as a context to understand you to have a good understanding about your business, and then we match that data set with what we call the bias data, what we know about each and every recipient when we reach out to them. And we essentially do web crawling. So we would go out on the web and we would go and access the website, the LinkedIn profile of yours, and any other sources that we can to have a good context about you as an individual. So let's say about you, Tim, rather than somebody else in the company, or just kind of generally about the company. So once we have an understanding of the value prop, we also align the ICP. What is the ICP of the value prop? We then have two options actually around sourcing data. We either source the data using LeadsForge, so the search engine, or option B, you can pull your data, say, from HubSpot or Salesforce, say natively, or maybe a CSV, and we use that as a list versus the ICP that we have in place. Then we would compute these unique emails, right? Like I said, how we, based on what we call matching the seller data and the buyer data, when we compute in different languages the emails, and we deliver those emails. And if the agent then comes back, then if the prospect comes back, then the agent responds back literally within like a minute or two, like quite fast actually, because timing also matters. So essentially, there's also a lot of studies that are in the space. If you respond to a prospect, more than 2 hours after the reply, then the probability of actually getting them on a call massively reduces. So replying back to prospects as soon as you can is paramount to increase the conversion rate. So there's response back and forth, and then the agent, so any machine should have a goal, essentially, any autonomous software. So what is the goal that you're looking to achieve? So in our case, the typical goal, there's other goals as well, but the typical goal is booking a meeting. So you can hook up your Calendly, you can hook up your Google Cal, whatever, or you can ask from a prospect for their Calendly link, and that's what the agent is trying to achieve, actually booking a meeting fully autonomously. So yeah, and that's what our customers use today, and yeah, many customers don't believe in humans anymore as well, and they just wanna reach out to prospects via email, and at some point also via LinkedIn as well. So yeah,
Absolutely. And any other agents you employ in your team already?
agents, yeah. So I mean, so the way we think about a business is when we have a problem in the business, we're looking to get what we call an off-the-shelf solution. So an off-the-shelf agent, so like Agent Frank is off-the-shelf AI agent solution. If that does not exist for the particular problem that we have, then we would implement custom workflows, essentially, using agentic or also workflows within that. So we use a platform called N8N. It's quite popular these days. It's going through the roof, actually, if you look at Google Trends. And it's essentially a competitor to Zapier and Make.com. So within N8N, on a weekly basis, we build like 5 to 10 workflows every single week. We have literally one person that we hire just to do that, to help us reduce the pressure around hiring more people, and also kill any repetitive tasks that we have in the business. So it feels a bit weird, right, that you need to hire a human then to implement automation, but that's how it actually typically works, so that after 3 months you'll be very thankful for that person implementing all these workflows within the business. And we do a lot of different things generally. So I'll give you an example of one workflow, which is not a agentic workflow, but it's an example of a workflow. So let's say if a user signs up on our site right now and signs up for a trial, they do give up also their telephone number, and then we check, let's say, whether the user has WhatsApp associated with that, and if they do, I would quickly just send an email. Hey, this is Frank from the Forge. If you got any questions, let me know. And that's all. So we would not send a second one or third message whatsoever. But it's just to give the customer the ability to reply back to me, ask me any questions. And this is a pattern interrupt, honestly, because I can definitely tell you that the reply rate on WhatsApp is at least probably 10x versus email onboarding emails. So if somebody replies to onboarding emails, it's very rare, but that people definitely reply back to WhatsApp messages because it's a bit of like a pattern trap. Think to yourself, when was the last time you signed up to a piece of software or like some sort of service and you got a WhatsApp message or even an SMS, really? It's like super, super, super rare. And then as a result, you're more likely to respond. And that's 10x versus inbound emails.
It seems like that your creative approach in every domain is what is one of your success formulas. So it interests me to hear from you, where is this whole space going? What is your vision of AI agents in the space? You've mentioned already that you think it's like a blend of human and AI agent.
Yeah.
And what is coming next? We already have an outbound AI agent. So what is the next era?
So the next era that we're going to see more of is essentially what's called agent teams or agent swarms. There's different names, but it's the same thing. Essentially, you will see more and more agents working together as a thing. So a lot of humans think about one agent, but really it's where the most world is headed, and it's already headed there this year. Is seeing multiple agents operating in tandem. So let's say in our case, it could. So let's say Agent Frank is an outbound agent, but we can set up, another agent just for all inbound related stuff, and that would be called, I don't know, Agent Sally, say, right? So Agent Frank will work with Agent Sally to process leads, right? That's an example of where two agents work together, working towards the same goal, again, to build pipeline. So we're going to see more of that. But really, I think where the world is headed, due to inefficiencies that exist, say, between two companies in B2B, we will see that more and more AI agents will pop up on the seller side, but there will be also more and more AI agents on the buyer side. So what we'll end up seeing is ultimately AI agents on the seller side will be talking to AI agents on the buyer side, and they'll be going back and forth a lot more effectively than two humans communicating with each other. Whether they're lazy or whatever the reasons are, there's gazillions of reasons why the communication doesn't happen back and forth. And on the buyer side, is will be very simple, which is, if this email that I'm receiving, whatever is in that email, and the pain that they're pitching or the solution that they're pitching, if it aligns with the pains that we have within our organization, I want this email to flow to a human, right? For the human to see that email. But if all the emails that I'm receiving, they have nothing to do with our company, with the pains that we're having, etc. I don't want to be looking at these emails, right? So this is how you want to protect your inbox. You want to definitely make sure that these emails are being essentially processed in a way that doesn't clutter your mailbox, and you're looking only at emails that are of priority to you and your company.
Absolutely. It almost hurts me to see how much outbound is just noise and wasted. Because if you look at the reply rates nowadays, it's clear that it's very inefficient, but somehow that's how the game works in B2B. You need to reach your ICPs, and outbound is a great way for it. But I agree with you, in the future, I hope there will be like an agent-to-agent pre-qualification on the buying and selling side, so that the end result is that you have qualified buyers, and on the other side, you have qualified products or services, where you just need to make the discovery call, right? So that's a very powerful vision. How do you want to engage in this area? So it's probably still 2 to 4 years ahead in the future, maybe sooner, maybe later. What is your plan in this area?
So we already see agents on the buyer side. So there are companies essentially that just focus on the buyers. And eventually we'll build a software for the buyers as well. So the thought process behind Salesforge is to really improve what we call the buyer experience. But what you need to do is you need to eliminate the noise, essentially. You need to eliminate emails that are being perceived essentially as spam, or essentially emails that are not relevant to me and my organization. So unless you have access, data access essentially on both sides, so on the seller side and the buyer side, you're unable to effectively eliminate the unnecessary communication or the emails that go out. So that's why there's so many emails going out, or the efficiencies are dropping. But if you would know, if you had some sort of signals, on the buyer side that would tell you, okay, these are the buyers that potentially are looking in the solution that I'm, selling, then you are able to do essentially buyer and seller matchmaking. But somebody needs to build that software on both sides to be able to achieve that. Nobody has done that yet. So that's the kind of the path that we're going ahead. So at some point we'll be also building software on the buyer side to help to enable that sort of matchmaking and eliminate unnecessary communication that exists in the space. And we do essentially predict that there will be less volume in general communication, but it will be significantly better, and meaning conversion rates will be going up as a result, right? If you know who it is going for. Because ultimately, if a lot more companies start using AI agents on the On the buy side, it doesn't really solve the whole dilemma, I would say, around receiving relevant emails. Yeah, so there's also a few problems there as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting to observe what's going to happen in the space, and I think we're about a year or two away. So it's quite soon
Right.
because simply because there is already software on the buy side. So
At
we
your
definitely
rate, you
have
could
seen
build
some
5 more
changes.
softwares
What's that?
this time. At your rate, you could build 5 more softwares within this time.
Yeah, we also have to maintain the existing ones, right, and grow
Right.
those. Yeah, we just need a few more engineers to do that as well.
Absolutely. So we're talking about pretty big technical challenges. So maybe tell me a bit more about your constellation in the team. You've mentioned you have 2 co-founders.
Yeah.
Are they taking more the development side of things?
Yeah, so both of them know each other for over 2 decades. And we met through YC matchmaking platform.
Okay.
Somehow the match was made in heaven uh, over a coffee shop. And yeah, so one of them is a backend engineer and the second one is a front-end engineer. So essentially they can build stuff. Um, and then I'm let's call it the go-to-market sales guy essentially.
Yeah,
But I also have the domain expertise, and hence I have the understanding of how the product looks like because I'm essentially building the software for my former self, right? So I have a
absolutely.
good understanding of how the software has to look like. So we don't need to. We have a good grasp on where this whole thing has to be headed, in order for us to sell this successfully. And so far, we've been doing well in the space, and yeah, but at the same time, it's a bit of a challenge, right? Because nobody in the engineering product team has ever been in sales, so it is a challenge to essentially translate of where the future is headed and how this has to look like. So it's ready, kind of it's future proof, right? As a stack that we're building, so nobody else can take us on for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge. So under them, there's about 20, 30 people. It fluctuates, but under me, there's about 10 people on the go-to-market front. So yeah, I own go-to-market and they own product engineering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, you're taking most of the sales calls, I guess, and you're customer facing. So that's where you identify the most common pain points, right? Do you have like a schema how you approach these calls in order to get most out of your customers? So, or my question is, how do you validate your products?
So I'll give you an example how we validated our latest product, which is called LeadsForge, so the search engine. So we announced LeadsForge to our existing customer base and to everybody on the internet. We got thousands of signups, and then we decided to, and the product was really, let's call it in alpha/beta, doesn't matter. But essentially, it was very raw. And on purpose, we just picked the first 100 people, and we reached out to them, asking them to jump on the call to show them how it looks like. And then when we did jump on the call, we did kind of warn them it's raw. So essentially, the way I think about it is and I also have a LinkedIn post on this. You have to feel kind of shamed about your initial first release when you jump on a call with a customer. If you have been polishing to death, you launch too late, essentially. You need to know what needs to be polished, which features need to be ironed out, etc. What is essentially the top 10 most important things that you have to see within the product for this to become essentially what we call minimum lovable product, essentially, where people are going to love it and this is going to scale to the moon with the first version already. So yeah, the best way to, as I said, that we've done that is we had a wait list. We picked 100 people. We showed it to them. We did what's called a reverse demo. So we gave them access. They played around with software. I recorded the whole thing, and then we just put that into a Slack channel, which is called LeadsForge. So we have evidence essentially of what customers have discussed, what they say. So then we have a good grasp on essentially where the software, what we need to fix, what are the top 10 things which is top of mind for the customers. Rather than fixing, other 90 things, which they didn't care about, right? But maybe somebody certainly did, like maybe me or somebody else. So yeah, that's how we roll. And that allows us to, then build and, what we call minimum lovable products. So that minimum lovable product will be launched essentially in a week or two. And yeah, at that point, again, then we're going to onboard everybody, and then we're going to get more feedback, and then we're going to, iterate from there on. So yeah.
Absolutely. And from the customer standpoint, what are their wishes and what is coming next with Salesforge? Give us an intro.
Next, so I mean, so we definitely listen to everything the customers say. Like they will name drop pains that they have, and then we're going to look at that pain and we're going to think to ourselves, is this a feature or is this another Forge? So for now, like once we launch this final Forge, we're looking to pause what we call a horizontal product expansion, so meaning building more Forges for a bit, and we're going to focus on what we call vertical product expansion, so making these Forges killer Forges, essentially, that they should be what we call a top product in their own niche, in their own category, right? So that, we float across all these maps, whatever we float, that this is one of the best products for leads, it's one of the best products for infrastructure, whatever, So that's really the goal. So yeah, we're going to pause for a bit, but we're going to keep on collecting feedback. What else did they want us to build? And then we just prioritize based on what we call overlap, revenue, naturally potentials. Do we expect existing customers to be buying this, new Forge? Do we expect a lot of them to be buying, right? Or do we expect them not to buy it? But I'll give you an example. Let's say when somebody uses Salesforge, so the execution software, and we just look at email only, we see that over 90% of our user base actually uses our own email infrastructure products that we provision. They don't use outside products that frequently. So that's a huge overlap in our eyes. So we are looking also at other Forges when we are looking to roll them out. How can we, for this particular pain, how can we make sure that everybody's using our product, or as many of them as we can, right? And why wouldn't they use our product, right? Is our product that bad? Maybe it is, right? So then we're going to develop it. So, but I can tell we have a selling engineering team, and we're definitely trying to build the software also in a particular way that we're not copying somebody. But we're building a software in a particular way that it's unique to all other softwares, in the market in that particular niche, and that would drive the MQLs, the leads essentially through the pipe for us to convert them. But yeah, a lot of believers are actually in the market are believers in what's called consolidation. So seeing this Apple ecosystem is definitely something that a lot of folks are excited about. We just want to double down on the message here, on the ecosystem essentially message, and make these Forges solid essentially. Because each of them essentially is a business in its own remit, right? So because it's like it's building a startup within a startup, even though it's all one and the same company. But because the expectation is that maybe 1, 2, 3 Forges will really take off, while other ones may not take off, right? And it's fine. But all of them make money, right? Literally all of them make money. So every single Forge adds a sliver in MRR essentially, and that's how we look at this as well, right? So
absolutely. So I'm an early stage founder, and you have a lot of experience. So what advice would you give to me? And I'm sure there are all a lot of other listeners here who want to learn about the first few things you need to do. Usually I would ask, what is the one thing I should focus on? But I know you're a guy who likes to focus on many different things. So let me ask you, what are the 3 things an early stage founder in the SaaS industry should do?
So thing number 1, which sounds sort of obvious, is to speak to as many potential customers as you can in different mediums. So whether that's on LinkedIn, Reddit, WhatsApp communities, Slack communities, etc., about the pain that you're solving for them. So try to have as many interactions as possible. To me, if I have to quantify that, I would expect a person to have anywhere between 5 to 15 meetings a day. That's what you need to aim for. If you have that sort of velocity, that you're speaking to so many people at this sort of velocity, then you can't get it wrong, really, because you get so much input data from the customers and what they want to see, etc. And so inevitably, you should get to product market fit, right? So if you're adjusting your product to the feedback. So that's, first piece of feedback. And, it's very obvious, but I can tell you when I look at other founders and ask them how many customers calls they have this week, and they may say 1 or 2, whatever, and I just know they're most likely not going to make it because they just don't have enough customer interactions, as simply as that. So then they're flying blind as to how to build this, how to solve the pain they're going after. Is there even a product market fit for what is that they're going after? Number 2, which there is a lot of resistance in Europe, which is working 7 days a week. A lot of Europeans don't believe in that, due to socialist state and the way that Europeans just roll generally, even though I'm a European myself. So if you look at the companies in the Bay Area, all of them work 6-7 days a week. And that's just how it is. And there's not much debate. So essentially the fact that you're putting in, there's more input from your side, that means there's a higher chance that you will make it. And the way I look at it is failure is not an option, essentially. So if failure is not an option, you do everything you can not to fail. That means also putting in just more hours. If you're not the smartest, if you don't have the network, whatever, just putting in more hours just to make it. And that's something you need to do in the first year or two. And then from then on, you can ease up and have your weekends, whatever that you want to have, not even work, maybe whatever. But yeah, it's paramount in the first year or two until you get to product market fit, until you have predictable, velocity in place in your business. So yeah, I would say that's number two, putting in the hours, and a lot of people don't. And when I see that people don't put in the hours, I know they're not going to make it. So I also, for example, invest money in different startups, and you can clearly see who's putting in the hours, even on LinkedIn. You can see that some of the founders are willing to jump on the call even on a Sunday to help their customers, while others will say, "Oh, sorry, it's a Sunday." So yeah, because they're very eager to really make it. So yeah, that's advice number two. Now, when it comes to number three,
Be creative.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, think of it this way: that the reason why you're successful is not because of because of me or something. You're successful because of the team that you have in place. So that means starting from the co-founder, product, essentially, founder market fit is what you need to have. So when I was also looking for my, co-founder, say CTO, etc., I was looking at founder market fit as a combo. And I can tell you I spoke to maybe another 40 CTOs after I spoke to the two guys that I'm with right now. And what I was trying to predict is the likelihood of success of each of the combinations. And I think it's hard to do that prediction, but you have a good gut feel which is the right team and what may be the issues in the future and so on and so forth. So team is key in the early days, and this is why, when somebody invests some money in the pre-seed round, etc., you simply look at the team. Because if the team is, still together and they're just, pumping hours, Monday to Sunday, they will make it happen. They will make it, right? Because they're doing the grind. They're persevering. Doesn't matter what challenges are coming your way. And we have many challenges, where we still persevered. We took upon those challenges, and now we have new challenges, But yeah, team is everything. And then I would say, maybe a bonus there, because we're talking about people, the type of people that you hire in the early days is kind of key in the first 50 people, right? So I did say it's about hiring what I call autonomous humans, people that own stuff. So the first 50 people is key. After that, you can start, layering management layers and whatever. But in the early days, it's super important that you have the right team on board to scale this company to the moon. Because if you don't, nothing's going to happen. I can tell you that. That's why it's important to hire people very fast, but also at the same time, fire them faster. And that's what also a lot of founders just don't do very effectively. They don't have a framework or a process on their understanding how fast they should be hiring. It's much faster than they actually typically think, much faster. Yeah. And how fast they should be firing them, it's also much faster. Maximum time frame is 3 months. Minimum time frame is a week. And in that time frame, you have to make up your mind whether you want this person to be on board or not. But the way we do it, kind of that pushes us to really consider every single person is by default, when a person joins the Forge, by default, you're not passing probation. So we build essentially a business case in the leadership team to make you pass probation period. And if one person doesn't agree, essentially vetoes, then something has to happen, essentially. But yeah, ultimately, we build a business case, and we only want to make sure we keep the right people in the business, because we know they're essentially what's called accretive. They actually significantly contribute in business. There are people where the business actually will, let's go break down if they're not around, right? But if you're replaceable, like I think this is advice to anybody. If you think you're replaceable in the company, you probably are. So how can you become irreplaceable, right? That's how I think about every person that stays in the team. They're just irreplaceable. They're just that good. And I want to keep them. They're what's called in the keep bucket. I want to keep them for life, for 10 years, etc. Yeah, that's how I think about, the people topic. People topic is the hardest topic, hiring people, finding the right people to scale you, to 3 million, whatever, 10 million. Like the 10 million, this is where the people that you hire is what sort of makes or breaks getting you to that next milestone.
Absolutely. So Frank, this has been very helpful for me, and I'm sure the people in the audience have found a lot of value from this session. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.